This is the Astrology Show podcast with Jessica Adams.
Thanks, Shane. This is your Astrology and Tarot for the week starting Monday, December 2. Happy birthday if it's your birthday. The partnership that gets better every time you look at it will change quite radically from July 2025 when you both figure out freedom. Famous birthdays include Peter Buck, who is 68 on December 6. Rick Buckler is 69 the same day. Dave Brubeck would be 104 the same day had he still been here. Sinead O'Connor would have been 58 on December 8, and Jim Morrison, 81 on the same day. Babies born this week have Pluto, Psyche and Ops in Aquarius. Their friends and groups will last forever, like a great Olympic team or a legendary band. Do you have Aquarius factors in your birth chart? If so, your friendships and the groups that you are involved with did begin to transform from November 19, but now the questions about control with your friends and with the group will be answered with a compromise near December 7, sharing the reins. Your tarot this week is Aries, the Eight of Pentacles, Taurus, Death, which never means death, it always means a new beginning from the end of the old. Gemini, the Four of Swords, Cancer, the Seven of Cups, Leo, the Page of Pentacles, Virgo, the King of Cups, Libra, the Six of Pentacles, Scorpio, the Star, Sagittarius, the Ten of Swords, Capricorn, the Three of Swords, Aquarius, the Eight of Swords, and Pisces, the Four of Pentacles. Aries, you have been in a bubble where your unseen world or invisible life is concerned, and like all bubbles, it looks different from every angle. Confusion about Buddhism, mysteries about mediums, well, whatever it is, Neptune this week will show you a situation that's all within you, which is all over the place, everywhere, all the time. Neptune and Saturn are both in Pisces, and in January, the North Node also goes into Pisces. You probably know Pisces are the two fish swimming in opposite directions, so you have been pulled in two different directions by psychics, priests, dreams, religion, spirituality, hypnosis, therapy, counselling, and anything else that's within. It's like having two different currents and not knowing which direction to swim in. The big events or the people which have come into your life in the last few years have got you here. Now, this contradictory and confusing situation does end. It ends in May 2025. But until then, rather than letting yourself go too drastically in one direction or another, you may want to tread water while you let these opposites sort themselves out. I think you know instinctively who to trust. For the most part, always trust the professional who others also trust. That's common sense. There may be a voice inside you which says who or what not to trust because it's too muddling, but it's not clear yet. Park it if you can't decide, but do be aware that a major 12th house transit like this does need solitude. You have to be alone just to deal with it. You likely already know this, but if you are letting yourself be distracted by work, relationships, friends, it may be time to find a space where you can be by yourself. Finally, the major event of the week is about your friend and about the group. Pluto, Venus and Ceres line up on December 7. This is about power. It's also about a very complicated relationship. It is also about how you're going to share that power and reach a compromise together. Taurus, well, it's all about the group this week and the nature of friendship. This has been the case since Neptune and Saturn started travelling in your zone of circles, communities, old and new friends, social media and organisations, clubs and teams. Now, this will take until May next year to finally sort out. This week they are in the sign of Pisces, these two planets, Saturn and Neptune, and so therefore you are being pulled in two directions like the two fish. Your social media, like Blue Sky or Substack, is random. Everything is all over the place, all the time, everywhere, and there are no boundaries. This is pretty familiar to you, and every so often you have to rein it all in. Well, this is another one of those weeks. It's also Christmas, and therefore it's the party season, which makes any muddle more obvious to you and those around you. In January, the North Node also goes into Pisces, in this same zone of your chart, friends and groups, and from that point, karma takes over with these people. The past will play a part in what happens. So this isn't over yet. Even though this story, which is so confusing, ends next May, all of next year, you do have a bit of karma to sort out. If you have anything in Aquarius in your natal chart, then this whole group situation will change your life by February. It's a bit like joining AC/DC in the 1970s or leaving the Democrats for the Republicans. It's huge. Even if you don't have Aquarius factors or you don't know, this week is still about realising that boundaries need to go back in with the group. Someone is still crossing the line. That's pretty easy to do when the line moves every 5 minutes, but if you are sorting this out, you might need help. For example, somebody who is outside the whole situation who can give you their 2 bobs worth. The other major aspect this week is all about your 10th house of career, unpaid work and academia. There's a big reshuffle near December 7. It began halfway through November, and you might say that the reins are going to be handled differently or by different people. A change in the rights, roles and responsibilities is coming. Gemini, your career, your unpaid role in life, your university or college degree or your other position, essentially your status, is now at the centre of swirling currents. Yet something is new. The old days of no boundaries are over. Give it 6 months or so and you will be in a new role on a new course then, or the people who are so confusing and confused will have gone. So give it 6 months and it's so totally behind you, the month of May 2025. To get there from here, you need to find out what would keep everything and everybody a little bit more contained. The randomness, the lack of certainty, the fuzzy thinking, maybe the illusion that you think something or somebody is over here and they're really somewhere else, all of that is typical of Neptune in Pisces. Saturn is also there, so having a split system or a dual approach can really work. So one half is realistic, patient, stoic, mature about it, prepared to wait, and the other half is escapist, has zero interest in the real world, and you want to lose yourself in another world entirely. You can have one job and divide it into 2 like that, or have 2 jobs or 2 courses. One of them is a big ask and the other one is a big escape. You are the sign of the twins, so maybe this is already part of what you're doing. As I've said, it's all over in May, but until then, you're right in the thick of year-end decisions by others in your field, your business, industry, and so on. This is all happening in your solar 10th house of career. In your natal 10th, we find the end of 16 years of politics, and on December 7, the final sign of compromise. If you have anything in Capricorn in your natal chart, then this is really personal. November and December are months of reshuffles, changes in the balance of power, the end of players and manipulators, and the start of a completely different atmosphere in your chosen field for 2025. So in both your charts, public and private, it's time to figure out success and status for next year and the system with new eyes. Cancer. It's time to see foreigners and foreign countries in the context of Neptune, a symbol of all that is random, floating and drifting, and understand how the currents and tides take you back and forth. Neptune and Saturn both travel through Pisces, the sign of the 2 fishes, also swimming in 2 different directions. You have been pulled in 2 different directions for so long that you may not realise it's still going on. This may be actually about compass points on the map, so west and east, north and south, for example. Or it may be about tourists, tourism, migrants and immigration. It may be about globalisation or multiculturalism, foreigners in your town or you as a foreigner to others on the World Wide Web. This cycle ends in May 2025. It has been confusing and confused for a really long time. It may have involved university or college life, perhaps the world of books, certainly the World Wide Web. You might say that you are here to learn or to spread the word about everything that you've been discovering, But at the moment, we also have Mercury retrograde in the same zone of your chart, in your personal chart, in fact. So everything is running backwards with foreigners and foreign places until January 3. So you may want to have plan B and C until then before you commit. Before then, with foreigners and foreign places, there will be reversals, rescheduling, and there may even be a cancellation. It depends on what you have in Sagittarius on your own birth chart. But these are really uncertain, quite flaky times in late November and December. What is good about this cycle is the chance to review, the chance to rethink and to rehearse possible approaches. As I've said, the cycle ends in May next year, but you still have to get through December. So do have plan B and C up your sleeve. Leo. Ever since Neptune began moving through your 8th house of finance and property in 2011, nothing has been really that clear or contained or controlled. This is now transition time with your bank account, your good cause, your property investment, lease, mortgage, precious possessions, shares or company. Neptune is a symbol of confused and confusing situations. You don't know where X begins and Y ends. And you've seen it all since 2011 with partners or probably with your relatives. There is nothing to contain or control what is going on yet again until you put it in place. Now, this cycle does end in May, and we don't know what happens then, but it may be in your calendar or diary already. Whatever it is, it will end the boundary issues because right now there are no boundaries at all. This is typically about a partner or a relative, but it involves numbers or it involves an asset or debt. In your birth chart, we also find that Uranus is still in Taurus, so there's ongoing instability and uncertainty with finance or property. And again, this cycle ends in mid-2025. So it looks as though the first 6 months of next year is the same old thing, not knowing, not being sure, not being certain. And then life snaps to grid. There is no rule that says you just have to put up with a lack of containment or clarity in the meantime. There are things that you can do. You can seal off and secure most of a situation that you feel is all at sea, or you can try your best to not just lose yourself out there or get in over your head. And that's not bad advice at all as we go into Christmas, which can be expensive. Virgo, you have had years of unreality and non-reality with a certain someone, or perhaps a passing parade of people. This has made life feel like a fish tank or an aquarium. Your former or current partner is at the heart of it, or maybe somebody who is against you. This is the cycle when your other half or the other side is so confusing for you because there are no boundaries. There are no lines in the sand. What we have here is Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, your opposite sign, and Pisces, the two fish, also swim in opposite directions. So you have been dealing with your other half or the other side being pulled towards X, but also Y at the same time. So no wonder muddle has ruled your world. This cycle ends in May 2025. Until then, you have to really look at January, which is just around the corner, as the time to take a break from a stuck situation involving this person, an extremely repetitive and cyclical situation which can feel like a stuck record. It ends in January, and then you can look to May. It's a two-step for the end of the confusion over the boundaries. If you have Libra factors in your chart, Virgo, then January is a huge change for you when the stuck record will come off the turntable. At the moment, you're still going round and round with your other half or the other side, but if you do have Libra factors, January will end that. Even if you don't or you don't know, the coast is clear in your marriage, say, or even with a love rival from May next year. In the meantime, reinforce the boundaries that have gone missing. You have already done this before, but this is the time to be fence mending or wall repairing. If you two are all over the place all the time, then that can be remedied. If there are zero lines with an enemy, rival or opponent, even your own brother or perhaps a professional adversary, then you can this week be proactive and start putting lines back in again. Nobody said Neptune can't be controlled any more than the sea does what it likes. So ask yourself where the anchor is this week. Libra. Neptune is now making himself known in the sixth house of your chart, which rules your daily routine, your lifestyle, your food and drink, prescribed drugs and recreational drugs, and cigarettes. It rules doctors, surgeons, healers, yoga teachers, and personal trainers. It rules the fridge and the pantry. It also rules your workload, your housework, your sense of duty and service. And as you know, the only thing that gets in the way of you doing what you have to do is when your body or your mind stops you from doing it. Over the last year or two, you have repeatedly had to put boundaries back in, and it's happening again. Confusion over the most confused people, organisations, or situations is really common. So try and find what works for other people. Who or what is your lighthouse and your red and yellow flag? You've done this before, Libra, and you can do it again. I mentioned the lifestyle and health angle because all too soon, from January 2025, the whole world is going to enter the South Node in Virgo cycle, which is the public health cycle. So we will all share some new, really important issues with public health from that month forward. So now is a really good week to get ahead of the game, to step back from your food, your drink, your exercise, your doctor, dentist, specialist, and the rest. If you feel at all baffled or muddled, then you can see for yourself that this cycle has gone a bit too far. So find out what other people rely on or who they rely on. It's perfectly fine to meander all over the place and live in random world if you like, but any more than that, and it's just not helpful for next year. The other big change before I leave your forecast for the week is around December 7, with the bedroom, courtship, babies, children, teenagers, and younger adults. There just has to be a new deal, a compromise agreement about how you are both or all to share the controls. Scorpio. With Neptune in Pisces and Saturn too in your fifth house of pregnancy, children, stepchildren, godchildren, teenagers, millennials, and parenthood potential relationships, things are still unclear. Courtship, the bedroom, offspring, and youth in general is muddling because although it's an escape from the real world, it's also all over the place all the time. You have been here so often, Scorpio, that you know what to do. You put the boundaries back in. The boundaries can slip and slide all over the place on this transit. It may be your son, for example, or it may be your partner. Whatever it takes to contain the situation should be used again, as it's worked before, or maybe you discover something which is serving other people and you put it in place. Needless to say, if drugs, alcohol, or even prescribed drugs which affect awareness are at play, then the potential for confusion is even higher, and you may want to think about that. Did you know that this entire situation ends next May? Neptune and Saturn will leave Pisces, and when we go to your birth chart, we find the same horoscope zone ruling close relationships and younger people, going backwards and forwards for months into next year. Mars is retrograde in Leo. So the timing seems to be in your birth chart and also your Scorpio chart around May, June, July 2025 for the big sign-off. If you have Leo factors in your personal chart, this is really important for you. This week is all about understanding that sometimes boundaries have to be installed or put back in place by being firm but fair. Assertiveness is a magic word, and this far and no further is the mantra. Sagittarius, you still have Neptune in your house, apartment, family, household, hometown, and homeland zone. So the randomness goes on, which might mean that the actual space at your place is fuzzily or hazily defined, or you are dealing with people or organisations which are all over the place all the time. It may be the council or the city authority that feels so random to you, and you often get boundary creep on the street or with the neighbours. It is just as likely at home. So your daughter does not stay in her own room, or your husband leaves his stuff all over the shop. Sharing a house with flatmates or roommates can blur the lines. No boundaries again. It can even happen on a really big scale involving residency permits or visas, or your entire country or hometown. The trick with Neptune and the loss of boundaries is to counteract it by finding out what works, which is easy for me to say and harder for you to do. But astrology tells us it can be pretty functional. So until this cycle stops in your life in May next year, you may want to find out tried, tested, and trusted ways of putting the boundaries back in. When people say something like, "this has gone too far," they're talking Neptune. It's like the tide going in too far and cutting you off. Neptune can be insidious. It's like the sea eroding the cliff. It can work in a subtle way over many years until you realise that within the family or with the house or the apartment, something has crumbled away that used to hold a line. So given that you do have this cycle until May next year, with a family or household member, and given that Christmas is just around the corner, you may as well sort out as much as you can this week. Capricorn. Nobody really wants to wrap up their communication, their multimedia, their internet, their information, their publishing, their education, while they're floating out to sea, and you're no exception. This week is like that, and you may want to take some steps towards pulling it all back in again, whether it's social media or whether it's the computer as a whole. Maybe it's the media for you. Mercury is also retrograde in December, and it is notorious for creating a state of backwards and forwards reversal with the internet and the media too. If you absolutely must go ahead with a project, a piece of technology or gear, or matters involving your transport or travel, be aware of the rescheduling, reversal, and possible retracted statement ahead. Read the fine print on terms and conditions. Saturn, your own ruler, is still with Neptune in Pisces, in the third house of your chart, which rules your way with words, images, and ideas. And that's why everything feels so frequently choppy or chopping and changing. Think of two fish swimming in opposite directions on the internet and you get the idea. You have been pulled this way and that with digital for such a long time that you may think it's almost normal, but it does end in May 2025. With Mercury retrograde as well at the moment in Sagittarius, this is pulling backwards right across the World Wide Web with foreigners and foreign countries. And of course, it's hitting you where you live. It's personal for you. What's global is coming home for you to roost. So have plan B and plan C all through December. And remember to be quite vigilant about boundaries online as well. Don't drift so far out on the net that you forget where you are. That's the message for you this week. Aquarius. Financially or with property, business or charity, this Neptune cycle has taken you away from reality for a very long time. And while everything has been random, you are now in transition because life goes back to normal next May 2025. It's going to take time, but this week it's important that you do your level best to try and rein things back in again. Focus on what has become so out of focus with your money, bank, cryptocurrency, house, shares, apartments, investments, tax, credit cards, and the rest. A two-way system is a good idea because you have Saturn in there along with Neptune. So one is a get real system and the other is escape from reality altogether. So you might want two bank accounts or two income streams. That's one example of how other Aquarians are handling it. The alternative this week is to go on spinning your wheels, hopping around and juggling. And that's really no alternative as well. You are heading into Christmas and New Year, which is expensive. So this next 7 days could be put to use by finding out, once again, what's going to work, putting a bit of time and energy into the numbers and some sort of system that helps you manage what's going on. In your birth chart, you have Uranus in Taurus. So this is the same horoscope zone, money and property, and it's totally unpredictable. That's not your fault. That is actually your national economy or the world economy, but it's been impossible to predict anything since 2018. Yet in your own life, there are things that you can do. And funnily enough, the sign-off for this other cycle is also halfway through 2025. So for whatever reason, you may know now, you are going to see a huge return to normality within about 6 months. But until then, yes, you need a plan. Pisces. Neptune continues to be confusing in your sector of self-promotion, name, branding, appearance, reputation, and title. It ends next May 2025. Until then, you read the rules, you watch the tides, you listen to the experts, and you know where the flags are. This aquatic analogy is appropriate for Neptune, and Neptune is your ruler. As Pisces, the two fishes, you are also sometimes a bit random or pulled in two different directions, and that may be behind the current confusion over how you are seen or how you appear. This may be a website or anything else bearing your name or your face, and perhaps there are two names involved or two faces or identities. Neptune and Saturn are both in Pisces, in your solar first house of packaging, until May, so you have about 6 or 7 months to go through the end of this cycle. And when it's finally over, you will be amazed at how different life feels. For a start, the endless focus on how you appear online will also stop. It just won't matter as much. Now, at the moment, you dare to look at film and photographs of yourself online with one eye open, because the truth is things have been accumulating around you online for years. It's a bit like seaweed gathering on the beach. And yet sometimes it's good to sort out the seaweed. So this week is a good time to do it. In your birth chart, if you have anything in Aries, then this is really personal because it's the same story, but it's much more about your private self as well. So what we're looking at here is nothing short of a transformation by 2025 in the way that you look, the way that you package yourself, and the way that you present yourself. Even if you don't have Aries factors or you don't know, it's still a good week to focus on yourself in the mirror or on Google. It's not ego and you're not being a narcissist. It's just the cycle that you're going through. And to be honest with you, it's a bit overdue. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch up with you next week.